Luca di Montezemolo became the Ferrari president in 1991 with a goal of regaining Ferrari's position as a leader in Formula One and exotic sports cars. He did this through the introduction of the all-new 360 Modena. The 360 Modena reaches 60 miles per hour in just under 4.4 seconds, and it produces 395 horsepower at 8,500 RPMs and tops out at around 186 miles an hour. Montezemolo's goal was to make a friendly, exotic sports car that could be daily driven, was more reliable than past models, and also faster around the Ferrari test track than the F355. Needless to say, the 360 Modena exceeded all expectations. Unlike other Ferraris from the past, Montezemolo pushed Ferrari to extensively use aluminum for the 360 Modena, which decreased the weight by 130 pounds and increased rigidity by 64% over the steel frame 355. It's been nearly 2 decades since the introduction of the Ferrari 360 Modena, and there may be no better choice to get into your first Ferrari. It looks as modern as any Ferrari sold new today and can be purchased at a very reasonable price range. Plus, service costs are comparatively low and reliability is comparatively high. Production of the 360s started in 1999 and went all the way until 2005. They succeeded the 355 and ended with the introduction of the 430. As with most Ferraris, there were many different variations of the 360 made. It started with the Modena, which is the hardtop, the coupe, and then they went to the Spiders, and then they went to the challenge cars. And the challenge cars included your standard challenge car, and then they had some variations like the NGT, which was tuned by Nicolato, and it was the most powerful of all the 360s with 540 horsepower. And then other cars like the 360 GTC, all built for the NGT class. But those are pure race cars. Then their last 360 was the Challenge Stradale, which literally means race car used for the street. Race street car. And we do have a video on our channel of us talking about that car if you want to go check that one out. They made a little over 4,000 360s for the US market, and that includes coupes and Spiders. And only about a little over 1,000 of them came with a stick. And of that, of the Spiders, there was only 670 that came with a stick. So having a manual transmission in a 360 is a very desirable option. However, it's one of those things where it's not way overpriced. If you compare the 360 manuals to, say, the 599 manuals, they made about the same 4,000 cars for the US market when it comes to the 599s, but they only made 20 in sticks. So a 599 stick has sold for almost 700,000. I think it was 680,000 a few years ago. And more recently, the price has come down a bit. They're more in the like 400,000 range, but it's still quadruple the price almost of a paddle shift 599, whereas the 360s, because they made more of them, they're still rare, but they're about a 50% premium over a paddle shift 360, keeping them much more rationally priced and accessible to more people. There's a lot of reasons why people prefer a stick shift over a manual, especially in these earlier cars. So the thing about the paddle shift transmission is they can be a bit lurchy in these cars. And the 360 really isn't as bad as, say, the 355 was as far as lurchiness, but it's still not completely smooth at low speeds and city speeds when you're going stop sign to stop sign. So it's not the most comfortable drive. So having a stick, it gets rid of that first off. And plus, I mean, honestly, there's nothing that beats the feel of a gated transmission in a Ferrari. It's a classic thing, and it makes you feel very engaged in the car. And personally, having driven a bunch of these cars with the paddle shifts, they really didn't get it truly right until the F12 came out with the dual clutch transmission. Even though the 599 is one of my favorite cars, it still has that bit of lurchiness. So when you can get one of these with a stick, it's just the best driving experience. One of the things I always look for in these cars is sticky switches. I know I've talked about it in previous videos, but I hate sticky switches. It's one of those things that just, I hate it. So the coating around the plastic on all of these cars from the factory, it melts in the sun over time, and it'll get on your hands, and then it'll get on the interior or get on your clothes and just ruin it. And it's almost impossible to get it out. And I hate it so much. So if you get one of these cars, this one has already had all the sticky taken care of. So it's on everything from in the center to on the dash, even the steering wheel, everywhere gets sticky. And it's not super expensive to take care of. It's roughly $2,000. And then once it's done forever. But it's just one of those things where if you got a car, and even if the switches haven't gone sticky yet, you want to get it taken care of, because when it does go sticky, you don't want to have to deal with the cleanup of all the goop everywhere. So that's my first recommendation. I also wanted to point out, I love how Ferrari kind of hides stuff like the switches and the door handle. So the door handle here is this lever right here. And then I was looking earlier for the window switch, and it's not here, and it's not in the center where they usually put it. They put it up here. So, you just kind of got to do some searching and getting used to these cars. Even the little gas door opener is right down here, and it doesn't work if the key is off. You actually have to have the car on. So when you pull into the gas station, just make sure you pop the gas cap before you turn off the car. Otherwise, you're going to have to get back in the car. And that itself is a little tricky because the car has an immobilizer. So when you get in, you have to push the button and unarm the car before you can turn it on. And then you only have, I think it's about 40 seconds to turn the car on. Otherwise, the immobilizer kicks back in and you have to disengage it again. So there's just a bunch of little things that you have to kind of get used to with these cars. But once you're used to it, it's not a big deal. And actually, it kind of makes it more fun. When looking to buy a 360, there's a couple things to keep an eye out for. So I already mentioned the sticky switches, which is always at the top of my list of things to keep an eye out for, but also make sure that you have good service records and that the car has had a recent cam belt service by a reputable dealer. And if it hasn't, have a pre-purchase inspection done by a good shop so that you know and get an estimate for what work might need to be done, so you know the condition of the car and you don't have any crazy surprises later. 360 Spyders specifically, one thing to keep an eye out for is the tops. So the tops on these cars can get a little expensive to repair, and this one was just done at the price of a little over $6,000. The tops don't fail often. It's the first time the top's been replaced on this. It's just, the car is getting to that age where it needed to be done. So you want to make sure you're looking for a car like this one where the owner has kept it well maintained, and whenever anything needs done, it just gets done. So there's not going to be any scary and expensive surprises later on in your ownership. There are certain cars that I have the opportunity to drive that are just a blast. And this car is definitely one of them. Not only does it do everything right, it shifts smooth, and it didn't, the battery didn't die, and it didn't fail on me at all, which some of the older cars occasionally do. And that's one of the things I really like about modern cars is the comparative reliability. But this car, driving it, it pulls strong and it drives like it's on rails. So I could probably get myself in a little too much trouble driving this car with just how fun it is and how well it handles. I hope you guys have enjoyed this video, even a little bit as much as I enjoyed driving. So I hope you stay tuned for the next video, and we have a lot more content coming very soon.